I always do my best to give evidence for the things that I share that some people may not be willing to research and find hard to believe. So I'd like to share with you clips from the fiscal year 2024 budget hearing, which was held in March of 2023. As you watch these clips, I want you to realize that the people who are affected are not only the military that are doing the fighting, but the people on top who they seem to be doing the fighting for, but unable to enjoy the rewards of their efforts. Please remember that as you're watching this, because it is not paradise worldwide.
Is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank our witnesses for your testimony today, and thank you for your service to our country. I applaud everything that we're doing to put weapons in the hands of the Ukrainian people. Thank you for making that happen under President Biden's leadership. Obviously, they've shown incredible resilience and effectiveness with the weapons that we have given them to push back against the Russians, the Javelins and the Stingers in particular. But because we all want to do more. And, Mr. Secretary, you and I had a conversation at the Pentagon not long ago about more lethal weapon systems, and you did respond saying that it doesn't do us any good to give them weapons that the Ukrainians aren't trained to use, which I agree with that. But now that we have the luxury of time, are we identifying those more lethal weapon systems that would help them to be even more effective at fighting against the Russians with a minimal amount of training that we could give some of the Ukrainians and get those more sophisticated weapon systems into their hands?
If you're not clear about what he is saying, he is asking the Secretary of Defense for our military to explain to him how soon they can get weapons into the hands of recruits who are under-trained, who do not have proper training for handling those weapons.
Yes, we are doing that, and I think if you look at the inventory of the latest round of assistance that we provided them, there are UAVs like the Switchblade UAV that we discussed earlier. That is, a higher level of technology, but provides them additional capability to go after armor formations and that sort of thing. And we continue to work with our allies to see what they may have in their inventory to be able to kind of up the game there in terms of additional capability. So again, we continue to interact with them on a daily basis and endeavor to meet their needs as the situation evolves.
Warfighter domains: air, land, sea, space, and cyberspace. In the case of 4 of these, the senior civilian responsible for this domain is a service secretary. However, in the cyber domain, the senior most civilian official is
Here, he is talking about problems with oversight and the qualifications of the people who essentially would be over the undertrained recruits who would be receiving enough training to obtain access to these more lethal weapons that this particular senator would like to see released.
4 rungs below in that hierarchy. Obviously, this seems like an imbalance. Can you explain to us why this does or does not make sense?
Well, thank you, sir. While cyber is a warfighting domain, there is not a cyber force like there is with special operations forces, with Army forces, space forces. So there is not a secretary, service secretary, designated. the head of the Cyber Command obviously reports to me, and he also is supervised by my Undersecretary for Policy, and so we have a number of checks and balances that provide civilian oversight. But because there is not a separate service, there's not a service secretary designated.
Well, I remain concerned about this structure, and I think that's something we're going to have to continue to look at, especially since the U.S. Cyber Command and Cyber Mission Force, which can be and is highly effective. I still think that we need to elevate the civilian oversight on this and involvement. Let me turn to something else. The so-called Valley of Death often makes it impossible for technology to transition from non-traditional organizations to programs of record to support the warfighter. What is the department doing to solve this problem, and how does this budget request reflect that effort?
Well, we've established an initiative. It's a reserve. It's called Raider. That encourages joint experimentation and encourages entrepreneurs to come in and bring their capabilities forward, and hopefully using initiatives like that, we can help bridge this valley of death that you mentioned here. This is very important to us. We want to make sure that we're getting the best that's available out there in terms of technology and capability. And so we'll continue to focus on that particular issue. But I think it's really important to make sure that the small entrepreneurs have a chance to get their products in the inventory.
Couldn't agree more. We have incredible entrepreneurs out there that can help make the warfighter even more effective. We want to make sure they have that opportunity to do so. I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. For your decades of service. In your testimony, you referred to private military companies that Russia relies on to undermine other nations' sovereignty. To the extent possible in this open setting, can you share your perspective on the relationship between the Wagner Group and the Russian forces at the operational level? And are you seeing the Wagner Group's presence in Africa change as a result of the war in Ukraine?
As you know, the Wagner Group is a mercenary private military company. They're conducting combat operations right now in Bakhmut primarily. There's probably about 6,000 or so actual mercenaries and maybe another 20 or 30,000 recruits that they get, many of whom come from prisons. And they are suffering an enormous amount of casualties in the Bakhmut area. The Ukrainians are inflicting a lot of death and destruction on these guys. In addition to Bakhmut and Ukraine, Wagner Group is in many, many other places, most notably in West Africa, where they essentially have taken over a country. And they've pushed out the French out of, I think it was Mali, and some other places. So the Wagner Group's a very aggressive group. It's led by a very ruthless guy, Prigozhin. He purports to be a businessman, but he's got an incredible criminal background behind him. So this is a dangerous group. They're quite large, they're quite powerful, and they have at least reached throughout parts of Europe and into Africa and maybe some parts of the Middle East. We ran into them in the Middle East a couple of years ago in Syria, about a battalion-sized force that was attacking one of our positions, and we destroyed that force. So they are there, they're aggressive, most of them are former Russian soldiers of one kind or another. A lot of internationals work with them as well. So very dangerous group, long reach, very wealthy, very rich, and they are probably very disruptive internal to Russian society.
I need you to understand, if these militia forces are experiencing as much loss as General Milley reported, it means that they are rapidly cycling through their new recruits. Please watch this video if you haven't already, because it's important for you to understand who is with us and who is against us. And the only way to do that is to evaluate each person on their individual merits, character, and consistent decision-making and behavior.